Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to be continuing our implementation of Azure Security series. And today we'll be looking at OAuth. Let me share my screen. So before I start with the lab, I just want to do a little bit of explanation around what we really want to do. And this is something that I always love to speak about because OAuth is something that is not tied to just Azure. It's something that all around the cyberspace. OAuth is like the standard when it comes to authorization. So in the cyberspace, all over the world, we always hear of authentication and authorization as fundamental principles when it comes to security of applications or any kind of system. So basically, in our own context, when it comes to authentication, our identity provider, I believe you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes, I'm already sharing. Our identity provider is the Azure Active Directory, which is now known as Entra ID. So that's our identity provider. So it's the responsibility for Microsoft Azure to do the authentication that is needed. However, when it comes to authorization, so we've seen some labs that we did previously whereby we needed to grant access to a storage account. So we needed to authorize an application object to a storage account. In those cases, what is recommended is using role-based access control, and it works in line with OAuth. OAuth is, as I said earlier on, is the global standard. So I have a link here that opens up how so many ways we can implement OAuth. They have a good documentation, you can check it out. However, this OAuth has different types of grant types. So there are different ways you can provide grant, you can communicate grants to the OAuth, and some of them, it includes using client credentials. You can also use authorization code, device code, refresh token, and so on. So this lab that we are going to be doing today, we are going to be making use of client credentials, which is, I mean, it's like the most popular that you will come across and kind of easy to implement. So basically, let me bring it more to our Azure context. But before I do that, let me just explain this diagram we have over here. You can see AD as the identity provider. You can see Postman tool as the application object. And Azure resource account is the resource that we are trying to be authorized to use. So you can see an application object is registered. So this application object is known to the Active Directory. Then we use this application objects to grant some kind of role-based access control with the storage account, and we are able to work with that. So we first of all use this application object to generate a token. So is that token that we now use to authorize that will now grant us access into the container in Azure storage accounts. So we can see identity provider, authentication, authorization, and Azure storage account over here. So what I'll be doing now is, let me share my screen, let me share my browser. This will be a fairly long video, but I'll try to make it as quick as possible. So you can see from the OAuth page the common grant types that I spoke earlier on. And I said we are going to be, our lab will be based on client credentials. There are so many others. There used to be username and passwords over here, but I think they've taken it off. I think that was for the previous version. Okay, I think they've taken it off now. So basically what we'll be doing is, so I have a storage account. Where is it? So we are using this. So this is the storage account. So let me just create a container. Let me call this container, let me create a container quickly. Let me call this container data. Let me call this container data. Yeah, so now that we have our container, I'll be adding a blob into this container. I've opened it. I want to upload a blob to my container. So I have just a simple blob that I'll be uploading. Let me go to documents, temporary stuff. Frankly, are your text. So let me make it a single word so as to avoid any let me put it together. Okay, text. Okay, so let me upload now. Documents, temporary, frankly, are your text. Yeah. So I want to upload now. It's just a simple file. We'll see the content now. So let's see the content. If I come over to edit, I can see the content. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's basically what is being said here. tube.com/arts. So yeah, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's basically what is in here. So what I want us to look at is let me close this. So let's go to, let me copy the URL for this blog. So we are going somewhere. Let me copy this. I've copied the URL. Now I want to try to access it. This is the URL. Enter. And it's going to give an error. Public access not permitted. Public access, blah, 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 blah. So we do not have public access. So if I should go over here and if I should change my access level, if I want to change it to anonymous access, so because it's already disabled at the storage account layer, I'm not able to change it over here. But if I want to change it, I'll just go over to um storage account. This is not where we are really going to. We are going to OAuth, but this would provide some foundational knowledge for what we really want to achieve. So I've opened my storage account now. Now I'm going to properties. I think it's called properties or configuration. Yeah, so configuration now. And you can see that allow blob anonymous access is disabled. So if we want to enable it, so let's enable it. So I'll click here to enable it and let me save. So I'm enabling public access now. I want to see if that would, I'll be able to view my blob. So that's fine. So let's go back to our blob. I'm going to containers once again, data. And now let me select this and change access level. Let me change this to blob anonymous read access for blobs only. Okay, so let's use this. Let's use this. Okay, I'll still change it back, but for now, let's use this. Yeah, so we've successfully changed the access level. We've allowed anonymous read access for the blob. So what I will do now is, let me get the URL once again. So I've copied the URL. Let's try to access it. Sometimes it takes a while before this will sync, but let's see. And now you can see that I can now view the contents of the blog. Previously, this was what it showed us: public access not permitted. Now, but there's an issue with this approach. So we are allowing anonymous access. So anyone with the URL has access. And that is not um, following best practice. Best practice should mean that only the intended audience should have access. When people talk about allowing least privilege, so we should carry that consciousness when architecting and implementing security in your cloud environment. So that is where this OAuth comes into play. So we want to be sure that it's only an application that has been registered in our Active Directory and have its token validated that will be able to have access. That's what we are really, that's the whole aim of OAuth. That's the whole aim of OAuth. And as I said earlier on, OAuth is mainly about authorization. So let me go and switch off anonymous access. Let me switch it off back. Let me disable it rather. Then we can start our the main reason why we are really here. So if this video is too long, I would have to divide it into two, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to configuration. So this is best practice. I'm disabling all anonymous access. So anyone that wants to get access needs to be registered in my Active Directory. And I do not want to do it just by using access policies. I do not want to do it just by granting clear permissions. I want to use OAuth. I want to make use of bearer authentication. I want to make use of tokens. And these tokens is not just limited to this. So many systems and applications all over the world, they use the same tokenization. I was working in an open banking project and it's also based on tokens. This same OAuth, bearer authentication. So it's something that can be applied all over. And I believe that's why Microsoft Azure have added it to their workflow when it comes to security. Okay, so now we are going to be starting the real business for the day. So let this save, let this get saved, and we'll start our real lab for the day. I believe you are clear on what we want to do. So what I will do now, the first thing I want to do is that I need to create an application object in my Active Directory. So let me go to my Active Directory. Yeah, this is my Active Directory. I want to add a new application, app registration. So let me just give it the name of this channel. Frankly, 00 3, just because I like 3. Can leave everything as default. You can leave everything as default, I believe. Then we are registering this application object now. Okay, so after registering the application object, what we need to do is we need to ensure that we go to our storage account and we add the relevant role assignments. We've done all this previously, even though we did not use OAuth in for the one we did. So the application is registered now. So now let me go to my storage account, and I want to, I said that when it comes to authorization, role-based access control is what Azure uses, and it implements it, and we want to implement it in conjunction with OAuth for this particular case, as well as client credentials as our grant type. So I will go over to access control because we are looking at role-based access control. Then what we want to do is to add a role assignment, which I'm doing now. So I'm in that storage account. I'm adding a role assignment now. And I would add a reader. I would choose my user. And this would be the name of the application object that I previously created, which is frankly your 003. So I'm adding reader. Then I'm going to be adding two role assignments. The second one will be specific to blobs. I'm adding another one. This time around, I'm adding the one that is specific to blob reader. So the way Microsoft have architected their environments is from up down, the granular approach. So the reader is for everything, but we must we must include specifically the actual resource that we are looking at. And in this case, blob data reader is what we are looking at. Yeah, so I'm adding this as well. So I'm selecting a member also, still the same, frankly, here 003. So I'm selecting this as well. Yeah. So we just wait a little while for this to get synced into it. Then afterwards, what we are going to do is we now want to get our endpoint. So what we've just done is that we've added some kind of linkage between our application objects and our storage account using role-based access control because we've added role assignments. But that's not all we want to do. We want to be able to generate tokens and use that token to get access into the storage account. So what we are going to be doing now is we'll go over to the application object that we created, which is this. This is the application object. Then you go to endpoints. Then you locate, you can see we have OAuth 2.0 authorization endpoint, OAuth token endpoint, version 1, version 2, OpenID. OpenID is something you can use for your authentication. So it's an identity provider that you can use. It's an identity provider, OpenID, while OAuth is more for authorization. So what we are going to be doing is that we'll copy the endpoint for OAuth 2.0. So I think there's an OAuth 3, but I do not think there's support for it over here in Azure. So let me see. I think there is OAuth latest version. Is there a 3 or 2.1? Okay, 2.0 is still the current one. I think I've seen 2.1. I think I've seen 2.1. So, but the latest one in Azure is 2.0. and a lot of platforms also make use of 2.0. So what we need to do is to copy the URL for OAuth 2.0 token endpoint version 1. The reason I'm picking version 1 is because we've not added scope. If we added scope, I would have gone for version 2. They are both 2.0, but there's a version 1 and there's a version 2. So after copying this URL, what I need to do is I will be going to Postman tool or any API client that you are using. I have Postman and I will be using that. So you can also use your browser if you've added some extension that can make your browser act as a as an API client or something. So what I want to do now is I want to create a secret. So I will go over here, add a new client secret. That's in my application object. I can call this Frank secrets. Frank secrets. Then I'll just add, click to add. Yeah, Frank secret, click to add. Then you need to take note of the secret value. The secret value is what you need to take note of. So I will go over to my Postman now. So let me stop sharing my browser. So just take note of this secret value. And also from the overview page here. Is this my overview? Yes, from the overview page here, take note of the, oh, this isn't, let me open it over here. From this overview page, take note of the client ID here. Don't make the mistake of using this secret ID as your client ID. Is your client ID from what you have here that you need to use. Client ID, what you have here. So I'll stop sharing my browser now and I'll be going to my Postman. So I'm going to Postman now. You know, I've copied the endpoints for OAuth. I've copied the endpoint that Microsoft gave me. Yeah, so I believe you can see my Postman tool now. So I want to create a new request. Yeah, so I'm pasting the URL now. This is the URL to request for a token. So I am using my application object to request for a token. Then when I get that token by OAuth, I will now use that token to gain access into the storage account. You can see that this is more secure than the previous one that we did when we were working with application object. That one we just used our as long as our application object it has been registered, we just use some kind of credentials to gain access. But now we are requesting for a token in real time, and is that token that we are now using as an header, as an authorization header into our main request. So this is not our real request. So it's a get request. Let me see. Our header, so some are hidden. So we'll come over to body. We'll choose we are working with XWW form URL encoded. So let me just get my parameters ready. Yeah, so what we just need to do is we need to copy our client's credentials. So the application ID as well as the client ID. So even though you are not seeing my screen, but I already showed you. So I'll just copy the client secrets, the value for the client secrets. So I've copied that already. So I'll put that into my request. Client secrets, paste the value, then client ID. So let me copy the client ID as well. Client ID, copy that as well. Then another thing we need to add is we need to add the resource that we are looking at. And let me copy the URL because it's a storage account. We want a token that will give us access to storage account. So we need to specify resource and we slot this in. Then basically, I think that's all we need to specify. We are good to go. So hopefully we can get our token, our bearer access token, by sending this request. I hope everything is on point. Yeah. So let's send this. Yeah. So just as a review, this URL, we got it from endpoints in our application object. We got this secret by creating a client secret from our application object. The client ID was provided to us by default when you create an application object. And this resource is from Microsoft documentation that says you must add resource as a key, and you must specify the resource you want to gain access to. So let's send this. Hopefully we get our access token. Oh yeah. So I forgot grant type. Grant type. Grant type is client credentials. Credentials. Yeah, so we can send this again. Hopefully it works. Yeah, so let's send this. Yeah, the good news, we now have our value. So we now have our token. Interesting. You can see how long it is, and this is the best way of handling it because we are getting the token in real time. So when building an application, so in subsequent labs, we have a lab where we are going to be building an application that uses Microsoft's managed identity for its authentication. You will be able to sign in using Microsoft, and this tokenization, bearer authentication, we are going to be generating them in real time. So it's great. So what I'll be doing is I'll copy this token. I've copied it. So we can now use this token to request for access to our storage account. So I will create a new request. And this time around, so let me get okay, over here, before I even enter the URL. Okay, this is under params. Let me go to my okay, let me get the URL first. I can always copy this again. So let me go back and get the URL for my blog. So the usual URL that we used. So before I even make use of the token, let me just show you that without the token, we are actually not going to get access. So let me paste this. So this is the URL. So, I haven't added any token to this request now. So let me try to send, and you will see that I won't have access, public access not permitted. However, now we want to include our token that we generated by using authentication. So I would copy the token. I will go over to I would copy the token, and I will go to my headers and add authorization. Go to my headers. This time around, I'll specify authorization. Then I would give it bearer, because we are using bearer authentication. Then I'll paste the token. Let me copy. I'll paste the token over here. Yeah, so I've pasted the token now. There's another key that I need to add, and this was from Microsoft documentation. I'm not sure why it's required, but you need it to be able to send your URL, especially your request, especially when you are using Postman. So I'll be adding that, and that's XMS version. Let me just copy the dates. Okay, let me copy the XMS version. So I got this from Microsoft documentation. If we have time, I can show you from where it was gotten, as well as the dates. So it's just a date to specify the version. Yeah, so I think we are good. So you know that previously it said access not permitted. So now that we are adding our token, we are going to see if we would gain access to the blob that we said subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can see 409L. So now let me send a request, and let's see. Yeah, and you can see we now have access. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and the link to my YouTube channel. So this is OAuth in action. So Microsoft have made OAuth very easy to use. You can use OAuth outside of Microsoft, outside of Azure, but the way it has been integrated into Azure makes it very, very easy to use. So if you gain something from this video, don't hesitate to share, like, and subscribe. So I think that's basically what I wanted to cover. In subsequent videos, we are going to be seeing how we can use this OAuth in real life application, how you can build applications with Microsoft Identity Framework in mind. So let me just share the diagram again, just as a I think I've closed it, have I? I think this is it. Yeah, so basically, this was what we did: role-based access control into the storage account, authentication through Active Directory. We are using the Postman tool as an application, and we're able to achieve what we needed to achieve. So that's the end of this video. If you gain something, don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. Have a good day.